There's no money in abstinence. Duke Rumely joins us from Sober AF Entertainment. They are on a mission to create safe and sober events that include connection, activity, and community while having a lot of fun. He talks about his own recovery, preparing and protecting his kids from addiction, and Sober AF Entertainment's mission to help shrink the 82,000 deaths per year by accidental overdose. Enjoy. Welcome to the Illuminate Recovery Podcast. We shed light on mental health issues, mental illness, and addiction recovery, ways to cope, manage, and inspire. Beyond the self-care we will discuss, you may need the help of a licensed professional. My name's Kurt Nider. I'm a husband, a father, entrepreneur, a handyman, and a student of life. I avoid conflict, I deflect with humor, and I'm fascinated by the human experience.
And I'm Shelley Mangum. I am a clinical mental health counselor, and my favorite role of all times is grandma. I am a seeker of truth, and I feel like life should be approached with tremendous curiosity.
I ask the dumb questions.
I fill in the gaps.
Today we have Duke Rumely with us. He is with Sober AF Entertainment.
Yes.
And it's fantastic. Duke, thanks for being with us. I'm kind of curious about the work that you do and being able to share that with our audience today.
Well, Shelley and Kurt, thank you for having me. It's an honor to be a part of your program. I am super excited to tell you a little bit about Sober AF Entertainment. I'm a guy who's in long-term recovery, which means May 15th of 89 was the last day I took any drink or any drug. And that was a big part of that was there was a sober support group inside the Grateful Dead called the Wharf Rats. So I was big into the Dead, and I'd been to about 15 Grateful Dead shows, and I would see these guys. And then that day came, my parents took me to treatment, and I, really could not stop drinking or doing drugs on my own. And just kind of the idea of life being okay without alcohol was a little more manageable, knowing that there was a group of people doing it already at concerts. Now, I'm 21 years old at the time, and, I had been kind of failing at life and was ready for a change, and having a very supportive family was all really important part of me having this sustained sobriety. So long story short, now it's 28 years later, so 3 years ago, my kids are having some issues. We're here in Colorado. My daughter's 20. She was at a concert and needed to take an Uber home, and I was trying to find out what's going on. And, it turns out all the kids she went with had taken ecstasy. So I had been in recovery a long time. I had worked in the recovery field. I knew a lot of people overdosed and died. And it's just a ski slope as far as the projection of this. We've gone from like 20,000 a year to 50,000 a year to 72,000 a year. And the trailing 12 months right now, the data says it's 82,000 people every single year die in the U.S. a drug overdose. So just why don't we give these kids some secondary culture besides beer pong? So that was kind of the thinking at that time. So we started this nonprofit called Sober AF Entertainment. And you guys know what AF stands for, right?
I don't. You better tell us what AF stands for. I'm afraid
it
to ask.
doesn't stand for anything. So it can stand for sober and fun entertainment. It can stand for sober, alcohol-free entertainment. We needed something to complete our acronym of SAFE. So technically the AF doesn't stand for anything, but so we started doing.
I thought that was a really good cover-up.
Thank you. Yes.
But now I'm not so sure. You sold it so well that AF just doesn't stand for anything. I get it. We get it just whatever we want.
I like that.
So, kind of the reality is like the term sober has got such negative ramifications around it. And, it is ridiculous that, 224 kids will overdose and die today. And it's not, the leading news.
Oh my
And it's
goodness.
so preventable. And the majority of these kids are in their 20s and 30s. And it's a generation that has, for the first time, has got their life expectancy shorter than their parents because of drug overdose. It's that big a number.
That's crazy, Duke. And the a couple things that you said that I want to touch on. One, tell me how old you were when you started drinking.
Got it. So I was 16 or 17 years old. Um, I'm not exactly sure exactly how old I was when I first started, but I do remember having that magical moment when I drank enough that I had this effect happen where I went from the scared kid to feeling like I was a Notre Dame football player. So I'll never forget that day, that time. And then it was a short period of time because then I blacked out.
Mm.
But my brain had gotten rewired by this intense experience that I had with alcohol on that one night at a young age. And without realizing it, became my passion and my focus and everything. Everything would be better if we had, alcohol with us or drugs with us. That was kind of my mentality up until the age of 21 when I, was taking a treatment and got sober.
And thank goodness for parents who really cared enough to really step in, because that sometimes takes a lot of courage, because I know
Yes.
it's probably not what you wanted.
No. Actually, they took me on New Year's Eve, and I talked my way out of it. So it was May 15th. So it was 5 months later that they finally were like, enough. You're not talking yourself out of this when you're staying this time. And it was really important that that last 5 months of my drinking was really the first time I tried not drinking and realized I couldn't stop drinking.
Mm, that's big. And the other piece that I heard you say is, and maybe it was a paradigm shift for you. I know that in my own relationship with my children, certainly they have caused paradigm shifts for me because they won't listen, right? They won't do what I tell them. And I have to
Ever?
start thinking, how do I want my relationship to look like? Because I think I hated my first child. And I heard you say, maybe I shouldn't be coming down on them for drinking, but look, they're picking up the phone and calling me and saying, I need a ride, I need an Uber, I need something. And that isn't that exactly what we want them to do?
100%. I kind of grew up in a very kind of strict military background trained dad, and it was this way or the highway. Um, and they were, pretty proactive. They'll just have 5 kids. And even though they did all of that, I still became an alcoholic. Right. So I just did not respond well to it's this way or the highway. Um, but at the same time, like I have a lot of knowledge about drugs and alcohol, and I'm trying to pass this on to my kids, and they're the highest priority you have, um, and just letting them know, like, look, I just want you to wait till you're 21. Because at 21, you're less likely to have your brain be rewired like I was when I was 17. Um, and neither of my kids need recovery. Neither of my kids have an addiction issue at the moment. They're 19 and 23. Um, and, I'm grateful for that, but they know what to do, I believe, if that were to happen. Um, One of the coolest things that happened was my daughter came to me and her comment, she comes to our sober sections with her sorority sisters. And she said, we've learned we don't need to pregame everything, you know, and I was very, I was great to hear that. I mean, what I want to hear is like, we don't want to drink or do drugs, and that's not the reality, right? She's 23, she lives in Colorado, and but for her to say that, they kind of looked at this thing and it was like, well, we're going to the sober section, we can't pregame. Why do we pregame everything? We don't need to pregame everything. Um, and I just think if we offer them some secondary culture, there's going to be a group who are going to be like sober curious. As a father who has a 23-year-old who, I'm always concerned something's going to happen to her if she gets roofied or is overserved too much alcohol. I understand how important, giving these kids, but especially, young women, the opportunity to be in a place that alcohol's not around, and that community support, I think they know they're safer. My daughter actually calls it the dad zone. Like, we know we're safe in the dad zone. And
That's pretty cool.
That's
I love that, and that they wanna come and be with you, right? They wanna come to the games or they wanna come to the concerts, but they wanna find a place where they can really enjoy it and start to think differently about that. That's pretty powerful to be able to send that message. I don't know, maybe you can talk a little bit about that that transition in your relationship with your kids, and maybe that happened because you went to treatment, and maybe it happened as they got older, but if you were, we have people on here who have kids, and if you had to give them advice as to how to interact and think about that relationship with their children, what would you tell them?
um, so I've was blessed. So I got sober early before my kids were born. And once they were born, I was still going to 12-step meetings. And so I think this discussion of either addiction or alcoholism would come up. And I had both kids do this program called the Betty Ford Children's Program. And we have it, I think it's in Denver, Dallas, and in California. And it's just like a 3-day semi-intensive training of why dad needs to go to meetings, and what to watch out for alcohol. So that's between the ages of 7 and 12, because once they're above 12, it's a different group trying to speak with. Um, so in my case, we did that, farther along. My kids are in school, and, I would, jokingly threaten their friends, like, I can drug test you with one of your hairs. And, you know, if a friend of mine's dad that said that to me and I was getting high, I would not show back up at that guy's house.
Right?
So, you know,
no.
just trying to, let everyone know that this house, we're not afraid to talk about being sober. So, my son would have poker nights here. And I would say these are sober AF nights, which means no one's getting high, no one's getting drunk, and no one's getting pregnant. But you can play poker to 3 in the morning, and I'll buy the pizza and I'll buy the Red Bull, um, and then kind of let them do their thing. And it was really powerful just to kind of watch this group of kids, 12, 10 kids spend the night, play poker. They would, you know, have rituals. If it was your first time there, you got shocked with electric fly swatter. You know, the first kid to go out gets shot in the butt with a BB gun. Um, and But it was great. So I think it was his junior or senior year. He's doing this, and he comes running into my bedroom like, "Hey, it's okay." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "You didn't hear?" And I said, "No." So some girl had walked in and said, "Who wants to get high? I got weed." And the whole group was like, "We got to get her out of here." Like, no, no, no. You're not going to ruin what we've got, a poker base set up here. Um, so it was really cool that, all these kids are talking about it. Really, that's really important to me, and they kind of appreciated the environment here, and kind of the cost to keep it was to stay sober. So was really, sometimes you do stuff and you don't know why you do it, and then it works out that way. And that was kind of one of those, like, God was in the room. And the idea of poker is not probably the most sobering, or it's probably not a lot of parent books, but freshman boys don't know how to hang out and talk to each other, especially without alcohol and drugs. But have this community based on kind of hanging out and having fun and playing $5 poker, um, was I think really bonding for his community. And then me not being afraid just to have this 5-second conversation. Everyone knows that this is a sober AF house, and just leaving it at that. So um, we don't do a lot of victory laps in parenting, especially at the ages of 19 and 23, where we are not over any any goal lines yet. But so far, I would say that was one of the things that I don't even know if somebody told me to do it, or how it all played out. I think I was playing poker with buddies in my freshman year, or my son's freshman year. I'm kind of watching his community not knowing how to build community. And that was my suggestion. And to his credit, he took me up on it, and we had a good 3 or 4 year run of these kids hanging out at the house.
That's incredible, Duke. And I love the way you set that up, right? I mean, you set them up to succeed or at least educate them and help them think about what they're going to do together differently. And you kind of you put that in place. So I really love that. That's incredible. I'm wondering, so talk a little bit about your, the sober AF entertainment. What different environments do you do you go to? Like, what different places do you go to? Schools? Obviously you're at games. Where else do you integrate?
Right. So as a nonprofit, we started off thinking we're going to create this community by hosting a kind of like a sober support event, so people can kind of charge up their sober battery before either a concert or a sporting event. And we would, go to Red Rocks for a concert. We would get the word out to our community. We'd throw up some balloons out of the trunk of the car. We would have some food and we'd all go sit together. And that was kind of the concert. And concerts are hard because A, they don't need help selling tickets, and B, y'all gotta, if there's usually not reserved seats, if it's non-reserved, y'all gotta go in together. But we did one for a Rockies game, and I would say we sold about 140 tickets in 6 days for a Rockies game. So to me, like, there's really a want, right? We know there's a need, right? There's this insane need that for whatever reason is not being fulfilled out there. But if we can make it cool enough that it's wanted is a big deal. So kind of as a newer nonprofit, the first 2 years, we really stuck to concert venues, music festivals, and sporting events. Music festivals were easy. They would give us a tent. They would give us like 6 or 8 free day passes. We would, man a kind of a recovery support booth and then just use a team and kind of rotate through. And you could go out and see a bunch of stuff and then come back and work for 2 hours. Sporting events were pretty easy because you buy a ticket, we get discounted seats using the nonprofit status. We throw some type of recovery support or sober support event beforehand. But concerts have been tough, just trying to figure out. I mean, we all like different music and it's expensive. And how do you kind of sit together? So we're still in the process of kind of figuring that part out. So we did 64 events in the first 2 years.
Wow.
So we were busy. We were doing about 3 a month, and it was a lot of Rockies, Nuggets, Avs, CU football, and then kind of local music festivals in Colorado. And then in 2019, we did a sober college game day tour where we went to the biggest game every week and hosted a sober support event beforehand. I don't want to use the word tailgate, but it was a tailgate. So grants don't like tailgates. So this is not a grant call. So we can use the word tailgate. And we would contact local treatment centers, collegiate recovery communities. So we did the Penn State at Maryland game, and both collegiate recovery communities came to the event. So we had about 40 kids all sit together. We invited local treatment centers and recovery residencies. So we had this big tailgate. And what we've learned is, like, you have to have a lot of fun things for them to do because being sober is a little extra awkward. And if you can get kids through the first 10 minutes of that awkwardness, then it's not a big deal. But you got to teach them how to get through that 10 minutes. So you got to have cornhole, you got to have a big screen TV, maybe play wiffle ball, just have some activity to get them engaged. And once they're engaged, they're in.
Hmm.
And I would say that was one of my aha moments, is kind of watching this kid come in, and he's a pink mohawk 24-year-old kid who's staying at a $500 a month lower cost sober living, and this kid needs another layer of support. And just showing up and just seeing the look in his eyes, like, oh my God, like, we're gonna have popsicles and hot dogs and go to a baseball game, like, this is gonna be fun. And it's moments like that, if you give people hope that they can have fun in not drinking, then the odds of them trying it and staying it longer term, I just think increase, 10x.
Wow. Well, and you're not just talking about people in recovery, kids and youth in recovery. You're talking about everybody. I don't know of too many people. I mean, there are a few, but too many people that come into a group and feel comfortable, especially teenagers, right? That
Right.
that just feel comfortable, like they can show up and be themselves. So I can see how this could expand and be really instrumental in helping engage kids all across the world, for that matter.
And it's going to be needed now after we've been sequestered at home for the last 12 months. I was out at an event I got invited to by Music Cares, and I remember pulling into the parking lot, and I'm like, I'm going to know maybe 3 people at this thing, and my body's telling me like, don't go in, go home. It's nighttime. It's Netflix time. It's not time to go meet new people. And I
Mhm.
was like, wow, like this is real. Like I really have some anxiety just walking into this building, and you know, so I think we're all gonna have to have some kind of readjustments getting back into group activity. So we're hoping we can help in that area.
Yeah, we're hoping that that COVID lifts pretty quick because everybody is in need of some face-to-face time for sure. This has been challenging for everybody for sure.
Well, we've tried to do virtual recovery support. We had 3 music festivals last summer where we hired artists to play. And then in between the artists, we would have a 3 or 5 minute interview with different recovery support. So we had, there's a recovery support gym athletic group called the Phoenix. There's a we had different like suicide prevention. We had the Attorney General speak. We had Miss America 2020 speak. Um, and we ended up having 3 of these festivals and having a total of 40,000 people watch. So at one point, we were the #1 station on Twitch for about an hour. So we had a lot of eyeballs watching it, and it was more to see a cool band that they knew, and it was different fans, I think, of the different artists that we had. But still, we had 40,000 kids hear the word sober. Each artist had to say thank you, Sober AF Entertainment, and they choked on the word. Right, you could tell this was not a normal word for them to use. And then but really trying to build community on that, we kind of failed, right? We got people to watch, and I think maybe that's what we're about. We hopefully motivate people, and this is one of the aspects that help them stay sober. Because I think really at the end of the day, 1 out of 100 people show up to our events, but the 99 who don't show hear about it, and it helps reduce this excuse of I can't have fun sober. I hear every once in a while, hey, I've heard about your group. And it's usually not our group. They hear about something else, especially early on. But there was this flight attendant who said she had heard about us. And she said, I was trying to quit drinking and I couldn't do it because I was afraid that the fun would stop. And my friend emailed me a news article that you had. And it just, I think there's a much larger community out there, looking to take a week off or a month off, but still want to have fun. Um, so I think really there's 23.5 million people self-reported in some form of recovery from drug addiction or substance abuse. So 23.5 million is a big number. There is 40 million kids in college, of which half are under the age of 21 that could use a secondary culture. So there's a big enough group out there. There's just no money in abstinence, right? So we're just trying to figure out. So we went from a kind of a treatment center donation model to a grant model. So we've been getting some grants. We've been really fortunate with the CDC and the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment and Caring for Denver has given us some grants over this last 12 months. And one of our grants, the CDC grant, was just extended for another 7 years. So we're
Wow.
Nice, good work.
really excited about that. Now I'm like, oh, what are we doing for the next 7 years? Like, oh my God, this is I've never had 7-year job security.
More of the same thing, it sounds like, right? I think that statement is powerful. There's no money in abstinence, and I think it kind of it kind of points responsibility towards some of the corporations and entertainment, of individuals in that age group.
Right.
But um, one of the things that I think is cool about your organization, in recovery, you're obviously familiar with connection and the power, that comes from that, and community and all that kind of thing. And what's awesome about your organization is that it kind of does that in a way that's not just a support group, right?
Right.
Like your traditional sit in a circle and talk about our feelings in a room, which is not going to be appealing to, someone between 16 and 24 who doesn't think they have a
Right.
problem yet, right? So if you can kind of create that connection, right? Add an activity, whether you're going to an activity or creating the activity, and that creates those relationships. You've got those icebreakers, right, which help kind of break through that, because it's awkward at that age, but like you said, it's not awkward it's not any less awkward later in
Right.
life, right? You're intentionally going to this activity with a plan. You've been invited. You've got an agenda, and it's still there's a level of anxiety,
Right.
right? That never goes away, and so the fact that you've been able to kind of create this formula where you can get people there, it's fun, have a good time, where they can shortcut the I need a substance to help me get to, this perceived connection, right? Where they think, okay, I've got my substance, body armor on, I can go and meet people and
Right.
have fun and have a good time. If we can skip that anxiety to, hey, all you really got to show up, and there's an easy icebreaker. We're going to have a good time. You're going to leave with, a couple of friends, or at least somebody that, you can smile at in school or whatever. Um, Teaches that ability of, hey, I just got to show up. All I got to do is show up, and I don't need to meet everybody. I don't need to be the life of a party.
Right.
All I got to do is show up and say hi to one person, and that's enough, right? Because that connection turns into that, stable place and safe place in that environment. So that system that you've put together is awesome. And you talked about the grant and ongoing, where do you go from here, right? Because to me, you've got an awesome thing going, and it seems like there would be so much value nationwide, right? So how do you get Sober AF Entertainment nationwide, right? Have you looked at other chapters or growing? What's the goals, right? What's the future look like for you?
Right. Thank you, Kurt. I so appreciate that. Really was my daughter kind of pointed out, like, look, this is not like some self-help group. Like, we need an activity. You know, so it's been really helpful having her part of the nonprofit. Just, I'm 53. I can tell what it's like getting sober 31 years ago. I really think I know because I go to these music festivals with my kids, but I really don't know what it's like to be a 23-year-old girl or a 19-year-old boy growing up with social media and in this world. So really trying to help them make sure this doesn't feel like group therapy. So secondly, really we're in this 2.0 stage of our nonprofit where we do want to go national. So when we did this college game day tour where we were in USC for football games, and I thought for sure there would be something like us already out there, right? At least on the East Coast or maybe on the West Coast. And shockingly, it's not. There's stuff that's similar to us, but they just stick to one area. I mentioned the Phoenix has a sober gym, and they've got a big grant, and they're in I think 25 states. There's another support group that does large music festivals, so they're at about 15 or 20 music festivals. But our goal is to be this national do-it-yourself recovery support movement. So we want to teach people how to do it, and then we outreach for them. So they come to our website. We wanted. So University of Virginia Tech reached out to us, and they said we wanted to do one for the Virginia Tech game September 2nd. And we're like, great, we will help promote. I can't use promote. I can say outreach. You can tell I'm thinking grant terms too much. Anyways, but we're going to help them put this on We've also been contacted by Texas Christian University, TCU, wants to do like a sober rave in the quad before the game and then have a sober section. So we want to use our nonprofit status to really get sober section tickets inside the venue. To me, that's really the end goal. We don't want to force this down people's throat because nobody wants to be told this, but we want to be able to offer, it's like a no smoking section 40 years ago, right? It was a crazy idea. We want to have the no whiskey drunk section, right? We don't want people in our section throwing up. So that's what we're looking to build. And maybe it's just having this conscious thought of like, oh, there's a sober section and it's no big deal. What I've learned is that there was one at the Rockies and there was one at the Broncos here in Colorado, and they both got rid of it because they couldn't manage it. So,
it's got to be kind of community managed, right? Like if they have to post bodyguards around the section, that's not cool, right? Nobody wants to be in that crowd.
Right.
But if that area is a group that's like, oh, hey, that looks fun, but this is not that crowd. Feel free to go drink over there or whatever. Then the community can kind of manage it a little bit, right?
Yeah.
What you said about those other groups is interesting too, because college is tricky because the kids cycle through, right? There's nobody at any of those schools who's staying there from now on. So what I think is interesting about your model is the fact that you have been able to get the grant status, and you keep, kind of tiptoeing around words to be careful. That's something that either a college kid or even an adult doesn't know, right? They don't understand that part. And so to me, that's part of the model that is valuable, because it could be, an administrator or an employee at the school, or it could be an individual in that area, right? In every metropolitan area, there could be an individual who looks at the model that you're doing and says, hey, I like this. I've got kids, or I'm in recovery. I'm invested in the idea. This is actually a job, right? This is the potential for hey, I actually, if I can follow the grants and I can follow the program that, Sober AF Entertainment has put together, I can be the pillar in the community that stays here, right? And you can kind of help create that, outline or process. And that becomes kind of a sustainable, long-lasting, like I say, pillar in the community. So that's awesome that you've been able to do that.
Well, to your point, like the collegiate recovery community really is in trouble. Part of the reason why, even if somebody does good and stays sober, you're right, they kind of graduate out and then it's always new. But currently, I work closely with the ones here in Colorado, and these kids are isolated. They've been on their computers or phone too much. They play video games and they swipe right and date, and they don't have epic recovery, was the verbiage that the director used with me. And we're just afraid that, if you don't have kind of this wow recovery, at some point you're going to go back to drinking, and be it just that you don't have kind of those tangible connections to get you through the hard times. So that's what we're trying to like rebuild. Like, look, we're going to help you get some epic recovery, and you're going to have an experience and feel a part of that will get you through the hard times.
If somebody wanted to, like, say we're in Utah, right? If somebody in Utah wanted to connect and create an arm or branch of your organization, is that possible? Could they do that?
Yes. So, Shelly, thanks. That's a great question. I should have brought that up earlier. You can go to our website, soberafe.com, and click on Become a Volunteer. And we are training ambassadors to be able to be the local representative. So, and that we'll teach them how to set up an event, how to invite people, how to use our nonprofit status. Typically, we educate people on recovery coaches or peer support specialists, and that is one of the things that We try to add. We've given out about 700 drug deactivation kits. So it's kind of a specialty little bag. You put pills in, you put water in it. It's biodegradable. You don't have to take it to a police department. No one can steal it out of your trash can, and you can just put it in the trash. But I mean, kind of the exciting part is I was in Phoenix at a thing called the Recovery Open, and I've met with some people who work with the University of Utah. So we're looking to do the Utah versus BYU game,
Mm.
which is supposed to be the big game. So we will meet in person um, in I think that's Salt Lake if it's at Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's in the works. So at the moment, because of COVID, everything is like in the works. But June 18th, we've got 1,000 tickets for the Rockies. We've got Miss America coming. We've got Colorado's Attorney General coming. We're going to do this big party 5 blocks away from the stadium. We're in the works of Country Jam as a music festival in Grand Junction. If you guys like country, I've got 4 days of country for you. So we're also going to be manning a sober support tent and sober campground. So you'll get your quota country over 4 days at Country Jam.
I'm a little bit
Cool. That's
jealous.
exciting.
I'm just a little bit jealous, Duke, because it sounds like you get to have an awful lot of fun working on sobriety.
You are on to me. Yes. That someone's got to, I guess, be the Pied Piper. But yeah, that is really the goal is it's got to be fun and it's got to be cool and it's got to be just as over the top as the other tailgates. The last thing we can do is throw something that, smells lame. And if that's the case, you're doing more damage than good. So, we're really there trying to make it, we want it to be so cool that we're fishing people out with beer cans out of our section. Like, no, I'm sorry, this is the sober section. We know it looks really fun. You're more than welcome to stay if you're sober, and hopefully they'll come back. And like I mentioned earlier, we've learned you got to have a big screen TV if it's a football game, or you got to have all different kinds of events for these kids to do at the event.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Kudos on their success so far.
Hey, I have another question, and this is something that I think this was relevant maybe years ago. I don't know how much it is now, but sometimes in 12-step meetings or other environments that you have to be really in sobriety, right? You have to have an addiction in order to participate in those activities. It sounds to me like your group is not exclusive, that anybody who wants and chooses to be sober can participate, and they don't necessarily have to be in recovery to do that.
Correct. 100%. This is a all-inclusive group. We just ask that you're not high or drunk at the event. So that's the bar. If you can show up sober, and if you're on methadone or Suboxone or Subutex, or have a Vivitrol shot, we don't care. You're more than welcome to come. So if you're using some medically assisted therapy or treatment or recovery, you are more than welcome to join our movement. And if you're not in any form of recovery, you're just looking to take a night off, or you don't drink and you want to bring kids, there's no age group. So we're open to any and all. And we really want to kind of be this bridge building communities together. And it's hard to be mad at somebody, eating a chicken wing, watching a football game. So hopefully we can, bring everyone together that way.
That's pretty incredible. And it puts family back in perspective, maybe, right? Because, if you're going to the game to drink and not be sober, that makes it a little hard to figure out where the kids fit in. And the kids probably have a hard time with that. So I love to hear that that's part of the move as well, is to bring the families back together and create that strength, because we all need a support network regardless of our situation, right?
It's so true that, we can recover together as a family, right? And I think it's really important for us to kind of back up our words with our kids. So it has been really interesting and fun bringing my kids to events like this. and having them bring their friends and having them kind of figure out what does, being sober mean to them, and why is that a big deal? And, it's, um, and I just think it's a discussion we're not taught how to have.
Yeah, I agree. Well, I know when I come to the games, I'm going to look for you. I'm coming to your games because I like the environment you're creating. It's pretty powerful.
Well, it is really wild. It is, kind of like one of the other aha moments I had is when we did one with CU versus CSU football game. I was contacting the athletic department at CU, and they called their collegiate recovery community asking about who is the sober AF guy. And I felt like I got them in trouble, and I was trying to like make amends for that. And they're like, no, like we've been here for 10 years and the athletic department never knew we existed. Like you're doing, like they thought we were the only one on the planet. They didn't realize that CSU also had a collegiate recovery community. And they were just very appreciative of kind of the amplifier we can be. And, that's what I'm learning is, maybe because of anonymity or misunderstanding of anonymity, we're just not a community that stands up for ourselves very well.
Mm-hmm.
If there's funding cut from like breast cancer awareness, senators hear about it. If there's money cut from drug and alcohol treatment, there's usually not a lot of follow up. Um, so we'll see if we're able to kind of build a little more legislative initiative around this. We did a sober support tailgate at the Super Bowl this year in Tampa, and we had the White House's deputy director of the National Office of Drug Control Council fly down for the event on his own nickel and attend the event and speak at the event. So, I think you asked earlier, like, what are we doing kind of nationally, and, really trying to figure out, is this idea grant fundable on a national level? Because if you gave me a little bit of money, we could do a lot of things, right? It doesn't take much money to really host an epic night. You get 50 pieces of chicken for $40. You get some $6 pizzas, and we know how to do it pretty inexpensively, let's say. But really, it's all about that kind of communication and how do you get the word out and who are kind of the key leaders in different states. So I would say 2021 for us is going to be building the army and building kind of the infrastructure through the website so people can host their own.
And you mentioned reaching out to the athletic department, and I thought that was interesting because the athletic department, when it comes to supporting the program and making a dollar go a long way, right? The athletic department benefits from all of that alcohol sales, right? So they're not on the side of like trying to get rid of that as fast as possible. So when you're talking about, how do you grow and extend that outreach, one of the ideas could be pharma, right? Because big pharma does not exactly have, a spotless reputation right now. And so it could be that Suboxone or methadone, or some of the companies that make some of those things that do actually help with recovery, could be that it's an opportunity for somebody like that to say, hey, this is a place where we can spend nothing of our
Right.
bottom line and have it still go a long way, right? So it'd be interesting to see what you can do with that as you proceed.
So, to your point, yeah, no university wants to stick their neck out and say they have a problem with drugs and alcohol. So, universities have been difficult to work with, more so than I thought. Colorado State University, where my daughter went to, was not able to support us because they have all these sponsorships with local breweries. And that was kind of
Yeah.
the feedback the kind of the marketing team told me. And I was like, well, I'm glad you're honest, but you do see that half your kids are under the age of 21, and you can't support this. This is not anti-drugs and alcohol. This is just secondary culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So yeah, and it's what we're trying to see. There is a bunch of opioid settlement money coming down the track that's going to go through the local attorney generals and then to the county commissioners through different counties. I think that's how it divides up. So I am trying to learn along the way where the money goes, and what we can do to make ourselves a little more fundable, to use some of those funds. So ideally, it is, education and outreach are the two things they like hearing. So, we're very unique that we don't have a civic center, or we don't have a hard building. We're more trying to create an infrastructure so people can do it themselves nationally. So I don't know why I didn't announce this earlier, but earlier this year we announced Project 72, where we're asking our community to host 72 sober sections at 72 different events this fall to honor the 72,000 people who died of drug overdose in 2019.
Cool. That's awesome.
So we have maybe 8 so far, but it's good. It's a good start. People are excited. They're just, I think, a little fearful.
That's a COVID
Yeah.
situation though, right? Like there just aren't events. So as I think as events pick up this year, that's going to make that a lot
Right.
easier for you.
So I mentioned the Rockies game. We're looking to do a big event with the Mets on August 31st, which is the International Overdose Awareness Day. We're going to be at Virginia Tech October 2nd. We've got 150 tickets for CU versus USC on October 2nd. We're also looking to do the Baylor at TCU game, September 25th, Rutgers at Michigan. Penn State game is in the works. So we got some stuff in the works. I don't know when that Utah BYU game is, but that's for
It's
sure
early in the season.
good, because I don't want to be there in the winter. I've learned you only go south in the winter.
No, it's usually nice. That used to be a really cold game, and when they got in different conferences, now it's an early in the year game to fit it in. So that'll be fun. Let's connect on that. I'd love to come see the booth and the crowd and see what you've got going
Right
on
on.
again. Follow up.
Bring
So
a
it'd be
bunch of
awesome.
people. We'll have a lot of fun.
Let's do it.
Fantastic. I also love to hear that you're not excluding people that are, on medications to help with sobriety. I know that that's been a big stigma in the industry. So I love what you're doing. I love the way you're gathering people and making it inclusive and safe, and incorporating the families into that. So Duke, thank you so much. It's incredible, and definitely when you come to town, let's connect. That'll be fun.
All right. Well, I should know the date. I apologize for not knowing the date off the top of my head. But yes, we will see each other in a completely different world. It won't be on Zoom. It'll be at a game. There'll be high energy. Everyone will be sober. Everyone will be having the time of their life. That's our goal. We want to, host the best night of your life sober.
That's
September 11th.
All right.
Time to be determined, but it's September 11th. I can help with the research
All
side
right.
of
There you
this
go.
conversation. So, okay, awesome. Thanks, Duke. Appreciate it.
September 11th. Can't wait.